Hello again everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to continue the story of Britain during the 4th century AD. And last time we left the Roman world fractured by civil war. Constantine's dynasty had torn itself apart, brother had killed brother, usurpers had risen and fallen, armies had marched, not on barbarians but against fellow Romans. The empire still stood, but the unity that Constantine had forged was cracking. In 367 AD, those cracks finally split open. In the depths of winter, along the northern frontier of Britain, the garrison of Hadrian's wall faltered. Some mutinied, some deserted, some, according to our sources, betrayed their posts entirely. Beyond the wall, the Picts were watching. To the west, across the Irish Sea, the Scotti were preparing their ships, and from the North Sea came Saxon raiders. And somewhere among them were a people so obscure that even today we are not entirely certain who they were: the Atticotti. The 4th century historian Ammianus Marcellinus called what followed a barbarian conspiracy. But was it truly a conspiracy? Or was this the moment that Roman Britain finally collapsed under the weight of its own weaknesses? Well, let's find out together as I take a look at the Great Conspiracy. To understand the crisis of 367 AD, we need to look not at the barbarians, but at the Romans. Britain in the 4th century was not the confident, expanding province of the early empire. For decades it had been drained by events elsewhere. During the revolt of Magnentius in the 350s AD, troops had been withdrawn from Britain to fight in catastrophic civil wars on the continent. At the Battle of Mersa in 351, tens of thousands of Roman soldiers died fighting other Romans. Britain's garrisons were never fully replenished after these events. After Magnentius's defeat, suspicion fell upon the province. Officials were purged, accusations spread, the machinery of imperial paranoia reaching across the Channel. Meanwhile, the northern frontier remained exposed, and then nature intervened. Recent scientific studies using tree ring data from Britain and Northern Europe have identified 3 consecutive years of severe summer drought between 364 and 366 AD, meaning failed harvests and grain shortages. Famine likely spread across parts of the province. Coin hoards, often buried in times of fear, peak sharply during this period, and villas in some regions were abandoned. Rural communities were strained. The Great Conspiracy may not have begun with barbarians, it may have begun with empty fields. A province underfed, underpaid and underdefended in a province ready to break. In the winter of 367, it broke. According to Ammianus, the garrison on Hadrian's wall rebelled and allowed the Picts from Caledonia to enter Roman territory. Whether this was outright treachery or simple collapse is unclear, but the result was the same. The frontier failed. The Picts swept south. From Hibernia, the Scotti crossed the sea in raiding fleets. Saxon warbands landed along the eastern and southern coasts, and the Atticotti, whose homeland remains a matter of debate, joined the assault. These were not lumbering armies bent on conquest. They were fast-moving raiding groups. They struck outposts, farms and settlements. They seized livestock. They captured civilians for slavery. They overwhelmed isolated forts. Nectaridus, the commander of the Saxon Shore, was killed. A senior military officer, Flavius, was either besieged or captured. The western and northern regions of Britannia were overrun. The remaining loyal units had to withdraw to fortified cities in the southeast, holding what they could. It appeared, for a time, that Roman Britain had simply ceased to function. And yet, here we must pause, because archaeology tells a quieter story. Excavations across Britain have revealed remarkably little evidence of widespread destruction dating to specifically 367. There are no clear burn layers in major towns, no mass graves, no horizon of devastation comparable to, say, the Boudiccan Revolt from 3 centuries earlier. What we see instead is something subtler. Gradual abandonment, economic contraction, repairs to forts in the years immediately afterwards. The raiders plundered, but they did not conquer. The land was shaken, not permanently scorched. Ammianus presents these events as a coordinated assault, a grand alliance of Britain's enemies striking in unison. But modern historians are cautious. Yes, the attacks are simultaneous. Yes, they came from multiple directions. And yes, Roman intelligence, the Ariani, the frontier scouts, seem to have failed, perhaps even accepting bribes. But there is no direct evidence of a formal alliance between Picts, Scotti, Saxons and Atticotti. Raiding was a normal part of life along the late Roman frontiers. Opportunistic attacks were common. A weakened province suffering famine and military depletion would have been an obvious target. Was this a true conspiracy? Or was it a convergence? A moment where multiple opportunists recognised weaknesses and acted at once? We cannot say for certain, but the effect was devastating all the same. At the time of the crisis, the Western Emperor Valentinian I was campaigning against the Alemanni on the Rhine. Britain, distant and embattled, was not his immediate priority. But eventually, in the spring of 368 AD, a serious effort was made to fix the situation. A senior general, Flavius Theodosius, was dispatched with a relief force. Theodosius gathered troops at Bononia, modern-day Boulogne, and waited for a break in the weather. He crossed the channel to Richborough, landing with an advance force, whilst the rest waited for conditions to improve. What he found when he arrived was not a province entirely lost, but one that was fractured and disorganised. Some soldiers had deserted, others had refused to fight, and some had simply melted away. Theodosius did not attempt one grand decisive battle. Instead, he worked methodically. He offered amnesty to deserters who returned to duty. He divided his forces into smaller, mobile units. He targeted raiding bands weighed down with plunder and captives. Ammianus describes how he intercepted these groups, defeated them, and restored stolen goods to their owners. When Theodosius entered Londinium, Ammianus writes that it was as if he celebrated an ovation. The city, plunged into despair, was restored more swiftly than anyone expected. Step by step, order returned, and by the end of 368 AD, the invaders had been driven back to their homelands. Mutineers were executed, Hadrian's Wall was retaken, the province was stabilised. Theodosius did not stop at military victory. He reorganised Britain's command structure. A new Dux Britanniarum was appointed. A civilian administrator was installed to oversee governance. The Ariani, whose loyalty had failed at a crucial moment, were removed from duty. There may have been punitive expeditions beyond the frontier, though details are scarce. A new province, Valentia, was possibly created in the north to improve administrative control, though its precise location remains hotly debated. Interestingly, later Roman documents record units of Atticotti serving in the Roman army on the continent. A generation after attacking Britain, some of these same people or their descendants were wearing Roman uniforms. As for who the Atticotti actually were, we still don't know. Some scholars believe that they are Irish raiders, whilst others have suggested that they come from northern Britain itself. Ancient writers called them the British race, but that phrase proves little. They appear suddenly in 367. They enter Roman service soon after, and then they fade from the historical record. By 369 AD, Roman authority in Britain had been restored. Coin hoards declined sharply after this point, suggesting renewed confidence. Fortifications were repaired, administration resumed. On the surface, the crisis had passed. But something fundamental had changed. The Great Conspiracy had revealed how vulnerable Britain had become. A depleted army, corrupted intelligence networks, economic fragility, environmental stress, a frontier that could no longer be guaranteed. Rome had recovered, but at a cost. In the decades that followed, raids would resume, troops would be withdrawn again, usurpations would return, and little more than 40 years later, imperial administration would vanish entirely from Britain. The Great Conspiracy did not end Roman Britain, but it proved that Britain could be overwhelmed. And once that truth had been demonstrated, it could never be undone. But thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. It helps immensely, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao ciao for now.